Alright everybody, we are back in the wood style. What we have here is everybody's favorite wood, the Ceonothus, also known as California lilac. You can see this is going to have some good burl figure in it. It's also, I mean there are some bug holes here, but it's a very dense, solid burl. So I'm excited about that because usually when I get these things they've got a lot of chaos in them. I think what I'm going to do is put a base plate here, something like that. This will end up being the top of whatever's in here. Turn it like that. Find a place to put probably a mortise on this one because this wood is really good at holding together and mortise will work really well on it. So, that said, you always got to pay attention to what the wood wants and we'll see where it takes us. I also thought I could do it like that somehow. But then it's narrower than wider and it ends up being kind of like a weird wing bowl or something. So I think I'm going to stick with my initial thought and go this way. Or maybe this way. Maybe if I could flatten this off, that might be the way to go. I'm trying to find where I can get the most out of this, so that's the thought process. So stay tuned. You'll see it on the lathe and figure out what I ended up with. Starting to see a little bit of the red that's coming through that wood. We'll see what we got here. I think that will do. Might do this between centers just to see if I can find the balance point better. I want to get as much of this as I can.
Well, here we go. Zed is going back to his origin story. This is the wood that just happened to be in abundance in the early days of Zed learning to turn. In some ways, this amazing wood is a really good wood to learn on as it has amazing burl figure and it sands and polishes nicely. But in other ways it is terrible for beginners. It's one of the hardest woods Zed has encountered and it's always full of bark inclusions, bug tracks, stones, and usually fire damage. All these variables ensure a challenging turn and dull tools. All that being said, these burls usually start as ugly lumps of brown and black. The treasure is hidden within. When Zed was born his mother said, "Isn't he a treasure?" And his father said, "Should we go bury him?" Enjoy the video.
So those of you who've been around for a while know I've turned a lot of these burls, and this wood is what this tool was originally made for. This is a piece of steel from the blade of a bulldozer, the sacrificial cutter at the front, and it looks a little beat up because it is, but it's a big, thick, solid piece of wood or steel with an edge on it, and this burl wood is really hard, but I think you can see this thing just takes the edge off it. So it's not so great when you get to the point where you want to clean it up, and you do get a little bit of this tear out, but this wood's so hard that it kind of beats you up. It's nice to have a good thick piece of steel. I also have this tool, which is kind of unique, and it's this similar idea that you just got a little weight behind it. So you can see this is just working its way through this wood really nicely. The wood, there is a little bit of tear out. I'm not going to finish with this. This is just for kind of getting down to the shape. We're getting close, but I need to work on that. But we'll end up with a little bit of this as a live edge. A little bit of that. I've got, maybe another centimeter or so I need to trim this down. Stop talking too much. So we're creeping up on a shape here. It's always a game of how much of this you leave. If I go too deep, I lose the shape I'm getting, but if I don't go deep enough, this overpowers the piece. But at least that's the way my brain works. So we'll just keep and this here, that is dirt or rock, so that's wreaking havoc on my tool if I keep going. Yeah, see that is a stone. But that is bug track, so that's okay. I think the rest is probably a stone there. All right. And it's so hard to get a good finishing cut on this wood. Every time you hit one of these holes, it makes your tool bounce a little bit, and so as you're moving, it's because you're hitting that edge. So that's where I find my scraper pays off, because it seems to be able to handle that. We're starting to see the burl figure coming through. This I'm going to clean up these edges with a grinder, and then we'll start sanding. Alright, we're going to dive back in with the axe, paste, and wax. I think that's going to really make the burl figure pop. Let's see. at that. So that really popped. All right, let's go to the wax. Alright folks, I'm going to follow my own good advice that I usually ignore, which is if I'm hungry and distracted, I need to stop. I am hungry and I'm also distracted. My daughter's home from college and I'm going to go do something fun with the family. So this hardwood can wait and we'll keep nibbling away. You can see where we are. I'll probably reduce the thickness by half. So I'm going to keep monitoring this hole. I don't want to get it huge, but I like having a little bit of exposure there. And then I don't think we'll break through this one. Well, we're getting real close right here. So we may even less than that. We're probably going to thin out this portion. We'll leave this the way it is. And then curve the bottom, and then we'll be in a good place. We're getting close, but I want to be top of my game when I start that, because this is where the highest potential for crazy stuff happens. And then we'll redo some blending in and sanding, and it's going to look great. So thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow. Alright folks, well there's a remote chance that you missed the last bit of me turning this bowl because I forgot to hit record. So if that's the case, my humble apologies. Here it is. I'm very annoyed with myself. Anyway, what can you do? I've only been doing this for 400 and something videos, folks. This turned out real nice. Got a little bit of the live edge of the original bowl, the burnt remnants. And then there's a branchlet there, but then look at that amazing burl figure. Really pleased with that. Got my logo on the bottom, little ringed bottom foot there. Little similar rim around the top. It's pretty thin walled. You know, you have to take into account the depth of these bark inclusions and such, so you can't go like super thin walled. You could if it was solid, but anyway, I'm really happy with that. I hope you are too, and I will look forward to your comments below. See you next time.